Hey, future nurses, ready to crush the NCLEX, HESI, and ATITs exams? Memetrics is here to make studying fun and effective. Whether you're into flashcards, practice tests, or video tutorials, they've got something for you. Let's take the NCLEX for example. I know by the end of nursing school you are burnt out and would rather do just about anything if it meant you never had to study again. But hear me out. Memetrics makes it fun and provides so many tools to help you study the way you want. Picture this, 110 NCLEX review videos to break down tricky topics, over 1,600 practice questions with rationales, and 1,000 flashcards to quiz yourself anytime, anywhere. Plus, they have 12 practice NCLEX exams that you can tackle before the big day. And the best part, it's affordable, flexible, and fits into your schedule. Head to the show notes, use code Caroline20 and get 20% off. Get started with Memetrics today and go crush your career goals.
Hey, welcome to Life After Nursing School. I'm your host, Caroline Dana, aka Nurse Coach Caroline, and I'm here to help you, the new nurse, thrive in your career. As a former nurse recruiter, nurse manager, and now your personal new nurse career coach, I'm obsessed with making sure you don't just survive your first couple of years at the bedside. I want you to absolutely rock them. From the challenges to the triumphs, I'll be right here with you, giving you the real-world advice and support that you need to shine. Whether you're in nursing school getting ready for life after, or you're already out there in nurse life feeling overwhelmed or even questioning your confidence, I've got your back. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, resources, and strategies that are just for you. We'll dive into everything from landing that dream nursing job to slaying imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how to keep that spark alive and stay the vibrant and amazing nurse that you are. So if you're ready to tackle the things nursing school did not cover, like how to build a career, trust yourself, and keep your passion strong, then get comfortable because we are about to dive in and make nurse life the best life.
Hey there, how are you? I'm so glad that you're listening to this episode. I imagine you are gearing up to prepare for the job search process as a new grad nurse, or maybe you have an upcoming interview and you are finding yourself thinking, how do I even prepare for this? Well, this episode is a great place to start. Today, we'll be covering 5 commonly made mistakes by new grad nurses during the interview process. First, I do want to explain where I have gathered this quote unquote mistake list from. And folks, that would be real life experience. Some of you know my story, but for those of you who don't, I will run through it quick. To start at the very beginning, I flopped my new grad interview, and I mean it was bad. I've learned since then that I tend to crack jokes and lean on humor in awkward situations, and that is exactly what I did in my interview. I showed up with a hideous pantsuit and a briefcase, like I was about to interview for a finance position. I entered the interview room to find a group of 6 or so people sitting around a table, and there was a seat at the head of the table just for me. And that's when I proceeded to provide an impromptu comedy skit and blacked out for the rest of the interview. Spoiler alert, I did get the job, but I am not too proud to admit that that was largely because of the reputation I had built while working as a patient care technician at this particular hospital prior to my interview. After a year of experience working in this institution as a nurse, I was asked to be the staff nurse representative on the nurse graduate residency program hiring team. I did this for a few years and then, long story short, found myself in a unique spot in my career and became the hospital nurse recruiter. Here, I learned all about applicant tracking systems, various recruitment strategies, and evaluating candidates from the moment when their application is first submitted all the way through until the candidate either had a job offer or was determined not to be a good fit. From here, I pivoted to nursing management, which was my ultimate professional goal. I worked as an assistant nurse manager, where one of my larger responsibilities was to hire for all the nursing positions in my department. In this role, I was employed by a large level 1 trauma center and world-renowned academic facility. And because of this, I had the opportunity to take various management-related classes, one being on hiring and interviewing candidates strategically. Here, I was able to really sharpen my already existing hiring and recruitment skill set. I progressed from the assistant nurse manager role to that of a nurse manager, and I was a nurse manager of a unit that largely relied on new grad nurses to staff it. And I was one of the lead nurse managers, a part of the new grad nurse residency program hiring team. I was in this role for almost 2 years. Now that I have given you the rundown or the quick and dirty on my background, as you can see, I have close to a decade of hiring experience in various roles, with most of that being specifically new grad nurses. So, having sat in on and conducted countless nurse interviews, most of them new grad interviews, there are a few mistakes that are made over and over again. At first, I was very unsure as to why almost every candidate fell into the same interview traps until I realized there simply isn't enough resources or education out there to assist in the preparation of nailing a new grad interview. That is when I decided to take matters into my own hands and provide new grads with tips and tools to land the job that they actually want. If you are looking for more resources or help with the job search process, check out my online community called the New Nurse Society, as well as my website, both linked in the show notes. Okay, friends, let's get into it. Mistake number one, rambling during your introduction. Your interview will likely start with some type of introduction. You may be asked, tell us a little bit about yourself, or take a few minutes to tell us about who you are and why you're here. Or would you like to start by introducing yourself? Now, have you ever tried to answer that question? I'm not kidding. Pause this episode right now. Take a minute or two to provide a self introduction to a pretend hiring committee. Okay, if you just did that and you're now back with us, you likely found that you started your intro strong and then you got lost somewhere in the middle, and then you continued to ramble until you searched for a way to end the answer. Believe it or not, this is how I would say most introductions go during new grad interviews. So let me give you a few tips. I want you to take some time after this podcast episode to write down what I call an intro story. Because the best way to tackle a meaningful introduction is similar to the way that you would tell a meaningful story. So your story should start with a beginning, it will have a middle, and it will conclude with an ending. You can start with your name, where you grew up. The middle of your story then can be about nursing, what it was about the profession maybe that spoke to you, what your journey looked like from the time you decided you wanted to become a nurse until present times. And lastly, you want to end the intro story with being on the interview currently and how you are ready for this next chapter in nursing. There are some additional tips that I do want to recommend incorporating while you're drafting your intro story. The first is to keep your passion for nursing as one of the main characters, but also realizing that you are the lead. So yes, tailor your intro story heavily around nursing, but don't forget to add in some details about what makes you you and what you enjoy to do and other things that you may be passionate about. These things can be as simple as hiking, going to the gym, reading specific types of novels, traveling, etc. These personal details allow the hiring team to connect with you, which makes you more relatable and therefore likable. And guess what? People hire who they like. Whether they are consciously aware of that or not, they hire the candidate that they like the most. Consider incorporating story details regarding any added responsibilities that you had during nursing school. Maybe you are on a college sports team or you're the primary caregiver of a family member. Acknowledge major obstacles that you had to overcome while in nursing school. I had a new grad client who became a U.S. citizen while in nursing school. She had to take classes, meet certain requirements and deadlines to become a citizen. Becoming not only a nurse, but also a citizen, what an amazing accomplishment is that? In addition to major obstacles that you had to overcome and heavy responsibilities that maybe you had to juggle throughout nursing school, I also want to encourage you to find a way to mention recognitions and achievements that you might have obtained over the last few years. Okay, next, I want you to end your introduction with a hint of longevity within the institution. Meaning, if you were to receive an offer here, you would stay for a long time. The hiring team wants to hire individuals they think will be a good fit and therefore stay a part of the organization for a long time. I know I previously mentioned that I bombed my interview as a new grad nurse, but I want to give you an example of a good intro story. So here we go. If I could do it over and go back in time, I wish I had said the following. Now, I am going to read an example here in its entirety, but then we will break it down after. Okay, so here it is. Sure, I would be happy to tell you about me. My name is Caroline Dana. I will be graduating with my BSN this spring from Salve Regina University. I am excited for this next chapter in my nursing journey. I grew up in Connecticut, and my passion for nursing started when I was in the sixth grade. At this time, my sister became septic after a recent strep infection and was hospitalized for a few weeks in the ICU. My mother was a nurse, and at the time, I witnessed her collaborate with other members of the healthcare team, and I knew that was something that I wanted to do someday. Don't worry, my sister has made a full recovery, but from that experience, I then became interested in medicine. I took an elective A&P class, and I also became a CNA in high school and worked as a PCT throughout college. Aside from my obvious love for nursing and helping people, I have been heavily involved in collegiate sports as I am the captain of both the women's cross country team and track and field team. I have thoroughly enjoyed these last few years, but I am beyond excited to start working as a nurse, and I hope to plant my professional roots here in this magnet recognized institution. Okay, I want to point out a few things in my example. I start off providing logistical details like my name, the degree I'm going to graduate with, and when I am going to expect to graduate. This is a great beginning, sort of setting the scene. I then go on to tell the hiring team that I became a nurse in the sixth grade when my sister became sick. I explain how my mom's actions sparked my interest for nursing. I took the hiring team then along a timeline from that moment of sparked interest through high school, where I took an elective A&P class, became a CNA, and even worked as a patient care tech. From high school, I take the hiring team through more present times where I mention that I am the captain of the cross country team and track team throughout nursing school. This highlights my leadership skills, hobbies, and abilities to juggle a responsibility like collegiate sports on top of the demands of nursing school. I end the intro story saying I am beyond excited to start working as a nurse and hope to plant my professional roots here in this magnet recognized institution. Planting professional roots hints at longevity. It loosely makes the claim that if the hiring team were to give me a job offer, I would make it I would take it and stay forever. Whether I actually plan to do so or not is none of their business, but strategically, we want the hiring team to think so. Okay, I know what you're thinking, but Caroline, you read your intro story word for word from a piece of paper, and you are right. However, if you get your intro story scripted in the way that you want and you incorporate some of these tips that I share, you can practice reading it word for word, and then you can practice answering the question off the cuff. You will likely not hit every point or detail that you mentioned in your drafted intro story. However, you will hit more than you would if you did not prepare this way, and it will flow much easier and smoother having been able to practice it. Okay, let's move on to mistake number two, not preparing for potential interview questions. There are a few different types of interview questions asked during a new grad interview, but there is a specific type of interview question that I want to focus on here, and that is behavioral based interview questions. Behavioral based interview questions are considered the gold standard interview tool to help evaluate a potential candidate. This type of interview question asks the candidate to recall a specific event or experience and to walk the interview team through that experience. This type of question typically starts with, tell us about a time when, or can you describe a situation where you had to, dot, dot, dot. The reason behavioral based questions are the gold standard interview type question is because it has been proven that the biggest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So if the hiring team wants to evaluate how you as the candidate operate as a team member, they will ask you a question like, tell us about a time you were a part of a team and how you successfully contributed. And they expect you to recall a relatable experience to share. Most individuals cannot effectively tap into their working memory in a high stress environment like an interview. When our nerves are running wild, our ability to recall past memories is even more challenged. So, in order to best prepare for these questions, I want you to get a pen and paper out, open your note section on your phone or wherever you want to take some notes. Get ready to write down these 8 categories. These 8 categories are common themes that behavioral based questions revolve around. 1, teamwork. 2, conflict. 3, customer service or patient satisfaction. 4, ethical dilemmas. 5, culturally competent care. 6, critical thinking or aha moments. 7, prioritization and time management. 8, safety situations. If you have finished clinical, take time to think back to each clinical experience and see if you can recall a patient or event that fits any of the previously mentioned categories. Can you remember a time when you went above and beyond for a patient? Great. That fits the customer service or patient satisfaction category. Do you have an example where you were involved in a safety concern for a patient or maybe successfully practiced a questioning attitude and in doing so caught something that could have harmed the patient? Wonderful. That's a solid example for the safety situation category. Okay, here's a tip. If you are struggling to think of different patient counters, review your clinical summaries, also known as clinical journals, that you may have had assigned throughout nursing school. You may have described a situation that actually fits into one of these categories, or you may have described a situation that may jog your memory. If you are still in nursing school and actively in clinical, I want you to keep these categories somewhere on your phone. And after every clinical shift, take 5 minutes to think about your day. Did you have to deliver culturally competent care? Did you witness an ethical situation? Awesome. Write the event in detail under the category. This will allow you to recall the event more easily in the future once you are preparing for an interview. I've seen a few comments on social media recommending new grads just make up the situation to fit the behavioral based question. I want to make it clear that more often than not, the hiring team, whom let me remind you has interviewed many, many people before you, can tell when a story or event is likely fabricated. When an experience seems to be made up, the hiring team will push for additional details, and the candidate will likely scramble to create additional storylines. When candidates describe a real event versus when the event seems to be fabricated is two different delivery methods or situations. So I do want to advise you not to make up the scenario. Instead, let's just prepare for them the best that we can. This brings us to major mistake number 3 that new grad nurses make in an interview, and that is not being mindful of their audience. The hiring team is the audience here, and the group is likely made up of a nurse manager, or maybe a few of them, a nurse residency program director, someone from HR, like a recruiter, and maybe a staff member or nurse educator. The goal of this group is to fill open positions with nurses that they feel would be a good fit for the organization and likely stay employed at the organization, aka show promise of longevity. I want to add that I host a webinar almost monthly for new grad nurses, and the topic is breaking down the different types of interview questions in a new grad nurse interview. If you've attended one of my webinars, you may have heard the story I'm about to share. If you have not attended an upcoming webinar and you want to, I will put a link to my Stand Store, which typically is where I post my webinar schedule and signups. So check it out in the show notes. Okay, again, I have shared the story in my new grad interview question webinar that I've hosted. However, I do want to share it here. I will never forget the best new grad interview that I was a part of. This gentleman had a beautiful resume and he was very well spoken, and he had the interview committee eating out of the palm of his hand. It was evident that we all loved him. When it came time to discuss his future goals, he proudly and confidently told us that he wanted to become a CRNA. There is no doubt in my mind that this gentleman became a CRNA. He was driven, clearly smart enough, and seemed quite dedicated to the profession. I am quite certain he is working in an OR somewhere, administering anesthesia like he had dreamt of doing. However, at the end of the interview, the hiring team agreed not to extend an offer to him. The reason we came to this decision is that this committee represented a small community hospital. In order to become a CRNA, we knew that a year or 2 years of ICU experience at a large level 1 or level 2 trauma center was required. We couldn't offer that type of nursing experience at this small community hospital. And we knew if we hired him, he would likely stay for a year or two and then quickly transfer to a more fitting atmosphere to help him achieve his career goals. I want to make it clear here that if he had said his career goal was instead to become a charge nurse or become board certified in his area or even become involved in hospital committees, if he said any of those things as his professional goals instead of becoming a CRNA, we absolutely would have extended an offer to him that same day. So please be sure and be mindful of who your audience is and the type of hospital that you are interviewing for. Your answers may differ depending on the type of facility that you are sitting in front of and actively interviewing with. Okay, mistake number four that is commonly made in new grad interviews is not coming to the interview with a list of prepared questions. There is nothing more deflating as the hiring team than asking the candidate if they have any questions for us. And when they say, I don't think so, it feels like the candidate just showed up to the interview because they had to. It does not make the hiring team feel as though the candidate is taking this employment opportunity seriously. So instead, come with a list of questions to ask the hiring team. I recommend coming with about five. And lucky for you, I have a free list that you can download and I will put it in the show notes. Okay, I do want to highlight though one of my favorite questions that is listed on that downloadable resource for you. And that question, that is my favorite question for new grads to ask the hiring team is, can you tell me about a time where you had a new grad nurse struggle on orientation and what you did or the organization did to support their success? This is a behavioral based question, so we know that this is a good indicator of future behavior. And however the hiring team answers this question will likely provide you with some information on how they will likely support you should you struggle while orienting as a new grad in the future. I also recommend asking the hiring team when you can expect an update on the position. This will help you give a potential follow up timeline and an idea of when you should reach out if you have not heard back. I want to add that if you find your questions have been naturally answered throughout the interview, because yes, this happens, be sure to say this. You can verbalize it in a way like, yes, I had a printed list of questions for you all, but since we covered the logistics of the residency program and discussed growth opportunities for nursing staff at the bedside in this institution, all of my current questions are answered. I would like, however, an expected timeline as to when I should hear back about this opportunity and what my next steps look like. With a statement like this, you are making the hiring team aware that you came prepared and that you are taking this opportunity very seriously. Again, jump to the show notes, grab that free list of questions new grad nurses should ask the hiring team during an interview resource and download it. Last mistake I want to share today is failing to provide the hiring team with an impactful last explanation of why you are the best candidate, aka an elevator pitch, or what I like to call your pick me statement. It is common to end an interview with the hiring team asking, and Caroline, why should we pick you to join our team here at this hospital? I also want to add if for some reason this question is not asked and the interview is clearly coming to an end, I want to challenge you to take matters into your own hands and say to the hiring team, hey, before we end this interview, would it be possible for me to take a brief moment to share with you why you should choose me to join your team? The team will likely be impressed that you're taking this opportunity, and they will also likely allow you to take the stage one final time. Now, before we get into an impactful pick me statement, let me tell you about what most candidates do when they are asked this question. Most candidates start strong with saying, you should choose me because, and then they go on to list adjectives that every other candidate is also mentioning. So they say something like, you should choose me because I am hardworking, dedicated, compassionate, detail oriented. And then they start to get lost. It is a very similar response to the introduction question. So let me give you a few tips to help. In your pick me statement, do not be humble here. Highlight your accomplishments and your strengths. Remember that the biggest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So use this to your advantage and point the hiring team back to your resume to provide evidence that you are all those adjectives that you mention or claim to be. As nurses, we trust and operate according to evidence based practice. So if you can provide evidence behind your character claims, it goes a long way. Another tip here is to emphasize again that you want to stay and grow here at this organization. Remember, the hiring team loves candidates that show promise of tenure. Okay, so for this question, I want you to draft a response just like you did with the intro story, and I want you to practice it over and over again. I'm going to share my perfect pick me statement just as an example. And okay, let's travel back to my terrible new grad interview. And when asked, Caroline, why should we choose you? I wish I had said the following. You should choose me to join your team because, as you can see from my resume, I am able to take on multiple responsibilities while maintaining an above average GPA in nursing school. In order to meet the demands of nursing school, remain an active leader within collegiate sports, and balance employment, I was quickly forced to develop life skills such as time management, prioritization, organization, and ultimately, the most important, grit. These life skills are quite transferable and necessary in the nursing profession, and I hope to build upon them while a part of this organization's healthcare team. This institution is where I would like to plant professional roots and become a well esteemed bedside nurse. Okay, I want to point out a few things in my pick me statement. I start out by saying, you should choose me because, as you can see from my resume, okay, that alone points the hiring team back to my resume, AKA my evidence. And then I go on to highlight my achievements like above average GPA and explain that I was an active leader in college sports and also managed to balance employment while meeting the demands of nursing school. I then highlight that I developed transferable skills like time management, prioritization, organization, and grit, and go on to explain that I believe these skills will set me up with a solid foundation as a new nurse. I mentioned that I hope to build upon these skills as a member of the organization's team, as well as plant professional roots here as a bedside nurse. Again, this hints at longevity, which is music to the hiring team's ears. I know I sound like a broken record, but I want you to draft your response and practice it, reading it out loud, and then move on to delivering your pick me statement off the cuff. It won't be perfect, but it will flow much smoother with structured practice under your belt. Before we wrap up this episode, let me share the New Nurse Society. If you feel you need assistance drafting a strategic and compelling resume and cover letter, as well as preparing for an upcoming interview, consider joining the New Nurse Society. It's an online community filled with new grads and nursing students learning to navigate this next chapter of their nursing journey. It is filled with networking tips, digital courses, resume and cover letter templates, an interview workshop, coaching calls, and guest speakers. If this resource sounds like something you want to be a part of, head to the show notes for a link to check it out. Okay, let's recap on the 5 major mistakes that new grad nurses make while in an interview. Mistake number 1, they ramble during the introduction. Mistake number 2, they do not prepare well for behavioral-based interview questions. Mistake number 3, they forget who their audience is. Mistake number 4, they do not come prepared with questions to ask the hiring team. And lastly, mistake number 5, they do not provide an impactful pick me statement. To wrap up today's episode, I hope you now feel more equipped and confident in preparing for your new grad interview. Remember, a little preparation goes a long way, whether it's perfecting your intro story, practicing those tough behavioral based questions, or crafting a compelling pick me statement. Every step you take is one closer to landing your dream job. Don't forget, you don't have to do it alone. Check out the resources I mentioned, including the New Nurse Society and the list of questions to ask the hiring team, which is a free resource, all in the show notes. Best of luck with your interviews, and I'll be cheering you on every step of the way. Keep striving to be the nurse you're meant to be, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Life After Nursing School. I hope you feel more confident and ready to tackle the challenges that come with starting your nursing career. Remember, the first year or 2 might not be easy, but with the right mindset, you can overcome anything. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. Also, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps so much in reaching other new nurses like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, you've got this. Take care and see you next time.